towers, domes, and octagonal power production locations repurposed, rewritten, hidden in plain sight. Almost completely written out of official history. It's relegated to a mere memory of a region, perhaps, no longer an empire, but the evidence remains. Though it may be a silhouette, there is much we may gather and have gathered of this former civilization, nearly extinguished, canceled from history. Almost, but not quite.
When you went to school, were you ever taught that there was a country called Tartaria? Chances are you weren't. And the strange thing is that this country not only existed less than a few hundred years ago, but it was also one of the largest, if not the largest country on Earth, at least at one point. So why has Tartaria been erased from our history? History is a set of lies agreed upon. Napoleon Bonaparte. Or let us take the matter of history, which, along with religion, language, and literature, constitute the core of a people's cultural heritage. Here again, the communists have interfered in a shameless manner. For example, on 9th of August 1944, the Central Committee of the Communist Party, sitting in Moscow, issued a directive ordering the party's Tatar Provincial Committee to proceed to a scientific revision of the history of Tartaria, to liquidate serious shortcomings and mistakes of a nationalistic character committed by individual writers and historians in dealing with Tatar history. In other words, Tatar history was to be rewritten. Let us be frank, was to be falsified in order to eliminate the references to great Russian aggressions and to hide the facts of the real course of Tatar-Russian relations. And this was no isolated case. In every Muslim area within the USSR, historians on orders of the Communist Party have rewritten history to distort the facts so that the Russians appear always in a good light. Needless to say, histories which present the facts truthfully have been withdrawn and destroyed so that the present and future generations of Muslims are forever denied the chance of learning the true facts of their nation's past. And that is an excerpt, declassified CIA document that was created in 1957.
We have been learning much from the architecture that remains, these octagonal forms. These towers once contained mercurial connections to the atmosphere, perhaps collecting energy and harnessing it, generating it through an octagonal shape in a similar way, much more elegant and efficient, however, much more beautiful in the past versus today. The culture, the civilizations that harnessed and used this energy have been almost completely extinguished, but we're starting to learn how the architecture was functional. There was a rhyme and reason for the forms and the shapes of the structural embodiments that we have looked into. Form follows function, yet what we see is so beautiful, it was hidden in plain sight. Thought merely to be aesthetic, the science backs up what they could have been, and further investigation reveals they oftentimes must have been. Who knows how far the technology went? We can only glean and surmise things from what remains, yet what remains, even though it has been altered, repurposed, it has been relegated to something less than what it once was. We see signs, and whether through myths, legends, and other stories of what it may have been before some kind of massive catastrophe. To understand the technology that may have been lost or subdued, suppressed through this catastrophe, through this reset, if you will, of history, one could look to Nikola Tesla, perhaps the greatest mind of engineering, who happens to hail from the former Tatarian Empire, at least what region it once occupied. Under occupation was one of risk and tragedy. But does his genius come from his own mind or from his culture, from his understanding, however it may be, however it came about, from what was lost, perhaps ancient existing knowledge? We know they suppress the advancement of certain technologies that could exist, like the flying car, perhaps scrying mirrors, and we find these stone doors and devices. So many things are found in stone that wouldn't have been carved. The narrative of the carving of stone doesn't hold up for the form, shape, and lack of function of so many finds that, after some catastrophe, exist in forms and made of materials that we don't fully understand, though some we do. We have evidence of electric cars being used. Many researchers suggest or hypothesize that Nikola Tesla simply was informed with the knowledge from the old world through the Crimean region, through the Tatar Empire. Coming up, you'll hear more about the subjugation of the Tatarian Empire's history. The subjugation of the Tatarian Empire's history from before the Crimean War around the Black Sea, through the Bolshevik Revolution and the advent of communism, through the devastation and confusion of the Second World War. Russia and other nations of the one world system, government, suppresses still the existence of what's left of the former Tatarian Empire, whose reach extends beyond perhaps anything written that remains. Is it any surprise then that the world's greatest inventor of all time would emerge from this region of the world with its murky past? His origins are just as murky as the circumstances that nearly caused his early demise several times over. Is he one person who made it out of hidden history? Or an agent of that system? That very system used for damage control and declassification of suppressed technology? It's a valid question. Let's look more into Nikola Tesla's life and work. As far as my research has gone, he's not officially from any sort of Tatarian Empire, but he credits his inventive genius to an eidetic memory that he said was genetic from his mother. Whether genetic memory or perhaps a coded message of the way that this knowledge was handed down, could it be that his interest in Serbian epic mythic poems, his interest in the past that was being suppressed through war after war and manufactured crises of all kinds, perhaps pandemics as well. Maybe this survived the purge of culture, technology, history, now hidden, censored, something that is becoming more and more apparent to be an unfortunate facet or endemic problem of modern civilization. We see it happening today. We see evidence that it has happened in the past. And it makes sense that there would be a damage control maneuver they would use. And these technologies come to us in a tessellated pattern. Tessellated meaning repeated. Some researchers go so far as to hypothesize that Nikola Tesla was a mere character, even the name Tesla being invented, indicative of his role in reintroducing these tessellated technologies. Also, as is hypothesized, that the World's Fairs were set for this purpose, to display the old world architecture and technology as a reintroduction to a reset society. And they say it's no surprise that Nikola Tesla himself was a big part of certain World's Fairs, such as the 1893 Chicago World's Fair, the Columbian Exposition, where he introduced alternating current from a single source distributed, ostensibly in response to the problem of lighting that World's Fair. We have these inexplicable fires that destroyed much of this architecture, as fires destroyed Nikola Tesla's laboratory. Were they natural? As far as the history and the people of Tataria, their portrayal from Hollywood to the other side of the Iron Curtain, the portrayal has been mostly to villainize them.
Con bloodsucker. You're gonna have to do your own dirty work now. Do you hear me? Do you? Kirk, you're still alive, my old friend. Still, old friend. You've managed to kill just about everyone else, but like a poor marksman, you keep missing the target. Come. Khan, you've got Genesis, but you don't have me. You are...